So Zimmer has talked a lot about a lot of things involving Xavier Rhodes. And of course, all week it's the conversation. He gives up a 60-yard touchdown. I don't care if it's coverage bust or not.
Right.
He looked like he couldn't catch up because he wasn't fast enough. And we have broken this down from every angle. And I wrote about it today at scorenorth.com. Zimmer's loyalty to his guys, and that he's basically going to ride or die with his guys. He brings back Anthony Barr and they overpay for him, but that's Zimmer's guy. So he wants him here. Now he wants Everson Griffin back, and that's worked out great. They want Kyle Rudolph back, and that's worked out really well. But on the other side of it, the Xavier Rhodes thing has not worked out well. But in his comments yesterday, he said that he felt like the defense panicked at the end of that game against Seattle, or in the third quarter when everything fell apart, and felt like guys started to go rogue a little bit, if you will. I just mean trying to make plays that they usually wouldn't because the game is starting to slip away and things like that. And I found that to be interesting, Alex, because this is not a defense of new guys or young players. It's a veteran Mike Zimmer defense that's been good for a really long time. And it struck me as odd to hear him say the word panic when it came to this defense and these guys. And I know this is taking me a while to get to my point here, but don't worry. We've got 2 hours.
Don't worry. We got a lot of time, guys.
Terrence Newman's going to join me. I'll get to this. I'll get to this. So he uses the word panic.
Okay.
Xavier Rhodes yesterday apologizes to the media for melting down.
Fair.
And I'm just finding it odd, Alex, that a team that's been together for so long and that has had a lot of success on the defensive side is having these things said about it. And I think that as we go along the stretch here and into the playoffs, this is a team that feels a ton of pressure, and that is going to make it harder on them. What do you think of that?
I agree. And I think that it's going to make it harder now because the defense is the biggest glaring problem. Like before, it was like, God, they just can't run the ball, or when they do run the ball, it's not efficient. That was the narrative when I was there. When we ran the ball, it wasn't efficient, and it never was because it wasn't good running. Like it was just like 3 yards, and that was it. And you're like, dude, we just never do it. And eventually, they figured it out with Dalvin and this offensive line and how to get him the ball. And now all of a sudden, everyone's like, okay, Zim, now what's going on? Like, dude, this is like taking everybody by storm. Like, wait a minute. No. This is a Mike Zimmer defense. You don't understand. They'll fix it. And I do think a lot of people are hitting the panic button, but for good reason, because teams have separated themselves right now in this league. We can see the really good teams from the really crappy teams. And all of a sudden you played a really good team and they kind of just ran it down your throat and gave you a dose of very simple football. And it was like, wow, that was probably not what a lot of people expected. Is that really how easy it can be? And it's going to be tested from here on out because people are going to say, hey, listen, if they can do it, we can do it. We just got to put our head down and run. Like, that's it.
I was thinking in my mind, Alex, about just teams recently that got to the same point as where the Vikings are now. And you started to feel it slipping away, and you felt like if they don't do it at this moment, then it's going to be over. And I was thinking about like even the Los Angeles Chargers last year when they went to New England, and New England handed the ball off 15 times in a row or something.
Yeah,
and it was just
crazy.
First down.
I'm sure the linebackers were like holding their shoulders, running up the field. And it was like, oh my God, this is the Patriots doing this. My God.
I was thinking of linemen around the world like yourself, Alex.
I loved it.
Enjoying the heck out of that. And I'm sure you did the other night with Seattle in the way that they won that game. But there was a feeling in watching that game like, this is probably it. This was probably their chance. This was Phillip Rivers playing really good for the last time, and I don't see it happening again. And here we are with that team at 4-8. And I know that's the next opponent, but there's a number of teams who have gone through this. When Matt Ryan in the playoffs rolled out to win a game against Philadelphia, he throws it to Julio Jones, and Julio mistimes the jump, and it goes incomplete.
Oh, yeah.
I had the same feeling. Not that it was over, not that they could never be competitive again, but you know what?
Their gusto.
Yeah, that was probably your shot. And you could go almost franchise to franchise when you knew it was over. The San Francisco 49ers, when they lost their 6'7" offensive lineman, then you knew it was over. But you know, all these teams that don't have the Drew Brees and Tom Brady, basically.
Right.
Go through these cyclical things. And I don't think it's over for the Vikings if they don't win the Super Bowl this year. But it does feel like if you don't live up to expectations, are you going to be able to repeat this offense? Are there going to be coaching changes? Is
Right.
Stefanski going to leave? And all these things. And I look at this team on the defensive side and say, this is a team that knows this is kind of it.
I don't know if they know that it's it, but I understand like hitting the panic button. I understand being in a tough situation, losing your running back, and all of a sudden this team is just kind of making play after play, and your offense can't keep up with them, and your defense is the side that's regarded as like the elite side. Like this is the side that keeps this team afloat. Well, now it's the offense that's having to come back down 17 points and be like, hey, listen, we'll carry you for a little bit. Like I think the whole defense was just taken off by guard. Like I'm like, what is going on right now? This is not happening to a bunch of no-name receivers. This can't possibly be. But to say that, I think that a lot of it is we've talked all year about the rules changes. And I think as much as people are like, listen, X is slow, X is whatever, he is still an NFL player. So you have to give him a lot of respect. I think that it's a combination of how the league is going. Like, all you physical DBs, I'm sorry, it's over. We want these guys to have their yards. We want it to be the wow factor. We want the games to be 45 to 55. Like, that's what people want. So you have to play a different type of football. If you can't adapt, then I'm sorry, you just can't play anymore. And I think that you're seeing that with this. I don't see a guy all of a sudden, and I know it's been a couple years coming, but you see the league kind of cracking down on these cornerbacks. And for whatever reason, to not call DPI against Diggs, which was completely crazy to me still, I mean, I just think it's a
Yeah.
combination of maybe he's not the elite player he was, plus the new style of play that they're forcing these guys to inject. Like, listen, you cannot touch them at all. Like, and it's like, how the hell do I defend then? Like, what am I supposed to do? Just be the guy that rebounds? I don't know.
And I don't disagree with any of that. That when you draft big corners who are going to be physical, and then they switch the rules a little bit on you and start putting this huge emphasis on pass interference, that's a change you're going to have to make.
Right.
I guess what I was thinking about more is Zimmer's panic comment and the mentality of a defense who knows that it's not what it used to be. That you have all these players, and some of them are what they used to be. I
Right.
mean, Harrison Smith is still very good, but Eric
Yeah,
Kendricks and Daniil
for
and
sure.
Everson Griffin, those guys all belong in the Pro Bowl. They are what they used to be, and in some cases, even better. I
Right.
mean, Daniil Hunter is number 1 in the entire NFL in pressures, and Eric Kendricks is number 2 in the NFL by Pro Football Focus's metrics, which you love so much. But he's
Love him.
played that well this
Right.
year and leads the league in pass deflections as a linebacker. So you've got guys who are playing the same way that they've played before, but they also have to have the feeling of this being very different. And I'm maybe trying to think of a comparison here where, let's say you were the Atlanta Braves when you and I were growing up and they had Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux and John Smoltz. And then after a while, those guys start to get into their mid 30s. And you're saying, well, I guess if we're going to win now, we got to get home runs. we can't just pitch our way to the NLCS every single year because we're the Atlanta Braves. And that adaptation has to happen here in a way that I think that this Vikings defense almost has to recognize who they are now and what they need to do to keep themselves in games like the other night and to not panic and to not have a team run over them or get a 60-yard touchdown pass. They have to be something different than they've always been. And I wonder, Alex, if they can do that.
I'm not so sure that they can. And I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that we explained on Tuesday about the two different sides. Like, both sides equally made a terrible blown coverage. And who it was, nobody really cares, but it was just terrible. The difference was the reaction on both sides. One was like a total fist fight, like we talked about, and one was a bunch of dudes like jumping around, joking, like laughing, like it's totally cool. It won't happen again. Eventually, people start to come down in different ways because, like you said before, the pressure on this team is immense. Like, hey, we have to go right now. There's no doubt there are guys that are getting older. You're going to need those guys down the line. So I think that it's the defense turning around going, man, we got some problems in the back end. And then all of a sudden, everyone tries to make up for it, right? Everyone tries to do a little too much. Everyone tries to do just a little bit more because maybe we're going to pick up the slack. When really all you have to do is your job. And if you just do that, it's enough. You know, guys, they turn around and they start to panic because you go down a couple scores and you're like, man, is there enough time? I'm not so sure. This guy likes to run the ball down. Like, he could have the ball for 12 minutes, literally. I've seen it. So all of a sudden they start to panic like, hey, maybe we need to, pick up the rush, or maybe I need to rush, or maybe I need to get back faster. When terms, dude, you don't need to do anything other than what we've been doing. We're fine. We'll get back there. We just kind of slipped a little bit, but people hit the panic button in the game and it just everything explodes.